there, you're listening to the Oklahoma On Stage podcast. Here we sit down with the folks that make the magic happen on and off stage in the Oklahoma theater scene. We're glad you joined us. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And our website is oklahomaonstage.org. If you have any comments or questions, you can send them to us at oklahomaonstage@gmail.com. If you like the podcast, please leave us a rating and review and share with those you know. Let's not waste any more time, shall we? Grab a snack and a drink and take your seat. The show is about to begin.
Welcome back, everybody, to Oklahoma On Stage. As always, I'm Tim. I'm your host. There are numerous stories within the theater community of leaving and coming back. I'm one of those stories. I've taken a couple of different breaks throughout my journey, but I've always come back. Today's guest is one of those stories as well. She started costuming 50 years ago, then took a hard left and into a bachelor's in industrial engineering and management science, and then a 26-year career in the U.S. Air Force. Now she's the managing partner and COO of Inspired Theater Company in Edmond, a company dedicated to creating a safe, affordable, and genuinely caring space for young performers and artisans to grow. She's raised 4 theater kids, built a company that blends discipline with heart, and she's still not done. This is a story of resilience, coming home, and paying it forward. Oklahoma On Stage family, please join me in welcoming Meredith Andersen to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Welcome. So as we always do with all of my guests, we're going to take this all the way back and tell me, how did you get started in theater?
Well, like I said, I started costuming back in the dark ages when what they did for kids in shows was gave them a pattern number and a pile of fabric. And a young lady approached me because she knew I sewed and said, "Can you make my costume for me?" So that's kind of how it all started. And with the skills from a singer sewing class. And then I started making all my own costumes for Halloween or what have you. And then I had friends who asked me to help them with their costumes. I did all my formals for military balls and things like of that nature through college. But then once I came in the military, there really wasn't a lot of time for that. So it all kind of went on hold. In college, I did take one costuming class because surprisingly enough, Polytechnic Institute actually had one of those. So for an elective, I took a costuming class, learned how to make patterns, how to make a costume out of muslin, and then create, in the actual fabrics that it was supposed to. Learned a little dramaturgy along the way. But there was only one of those kinds of classes in my college. So, but really, I was never a big actor. I did one play in high school, and that was it. And it was just, I didn't want to be in front of all the people. I wanted to be cheering the people on. So that's kind of how that all worked. And then fast forward, and I had kids, and there was a lot of dramatic things happening with my children. And I said, we're going to enroll you in theater, and you're going to leave the drama on the stage and not bring it home unless we're reading lines. So that's kind of how it came to be. And then it just went from there. And my kids were in, they needed help with costumes. And the next thing you know, there was a show that I did, like we were doing the Jungle Book, and I did all the wolves costumes. And then I was dyeing Shere Khan and just one thing after another. And so it went from kind of being a mom helping out or, like, hey, I know something about doing this and doing that. And then the next thing you know, I was at a dance studio. I had boy dancers and they really didn't know a whole lot about how to costume for boy dancers, so I started doing that. And then they decided to grow their theater department, so I started helping with that, because the seamstresses that they had were all for dancers and not for character acting. So and eventually I took over costuming for the theater department, and then the theater department went through a rebuilding kinda stage, and I said, "We need somebody who manages productions," and they said, "Okay, well, you can do that." So, and I had when I had retired from the military, I said, "I'm done with leadership roles, I just wanna be a doer." I wanna keep it simple, that and the next thing you know, I'm in charge of a department and responsible for trying to build a department. So, when I first started in the department, it was myself and my daughter and another lovely young woman who had experience as a performer, and we put on a lot of shows together, and we loved that, and then she left to go chase her Disney princess dreams, and she's still in Florida working at SeaWorld and Universal and Disney, performing, not just, in the costume shop or the gift shop or whatever. But, so and we brought in another person, her name's Miranda, and the 3 of us kinda became like the 3 musketeers, and it was all about putting on shows and helping kids find their way and finding their voice and expressing themselves, and that's probably the most rewarding thing is watching kids, especially shy ones, find their voice and gain confidence to stand up in front of an audience and sing a song.
Very cool. That's a great story.
Thank you.
So you got hooked into costuming. Where did your bachelor's in industrial engineering and management science come into play?
Um, the Air Force was willing to pay for that degree. I was actually a chemical engineering major, and chemistry had been a love for as long as I could remember. So I was definitely a STEM kid, and math science was the area that I excelled in. So, but the Air Force decided while I was a freshman in college that they no longer needed chemical and environmental engineers. A decision they later regretted in reverse, but when they started closing bases and had messes to clean up.
Yeah.
But so there I was, um, a, s- a scholarship kid without a military scholarship, and I needed it. And so they offered this as an alternative to chemical engineering. And by that time, I had found out that most of the engineers that had graduated from our school were doing project management. And I was like, well, if I'm going to be a project manager, I might as well get a degree where they teach me how to be a good project manager. So that's what I did.
So the Air Force came first, and then the degree.
Pretty much.
Okay, so what called you into the U.S. Air Force?
That's a great question that I'm not sure I've thought about in a very, very long time. I think it was really one, I needed the money. I could not afford college on my own, and as it was, I graduated with a fair amount of student loan debt. So I had met somebody at the University of Kansas where I went for a semester before I transferred to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York, and he was an ROTC student, told me all about it. So I was like, "Okay, that seems like a really good way to earn money for college." So that's just what I did. But once I was there, I loved it. I loved the structure. I loved, just the idea of, like, knowing what's expected of you, and then you choose whether you're gonna deliver or how you're gonna deliver. So I thrived in that environment, and so the degree came with a 4-year commitment, and I said, "Well, let's see how the first 4 years goes, and if I can still like it, I'll just keep going." And that's what I did. So,
Very cool. So how much of the skills you talk about the leadership aspect that you brought with you, how much of the skills and things that you learned in the military show up in your theater life?
A lot, actually. But it's different, and I've had to unlearn a lot because these are not airmen who have to do what I tell them to do or else, and a letter of counseling won't go very far with creatives. So, um, so, but the things, organizational skills, how to run a meeting, I'm actually very shy, and introverted, but the military taught me how to have an interview with somebody and how to stand up in front of 300 soldiers or airmen and prepare and deliver a briefing to them. So, it taught me tons about logistics. I did an awful lot of troop movement kinds of things. Taught me how to use Excel, which I use every day in my theater work.
Right.
Um, Taught me how to communicate in writing. So, all those skills, all those life skills show up every day from the military to theater. And that's one of the big things I try to tell parents too. Theater isn't just some little fluff activity for your kid to do. It gives you great life skills. It teaches you how to get along or cooperate towards a goal with people maybe you don't like, or maybe people you wouldn't normally come into contact with, so that you guys can cooperate and achieve, whether it's a show or whatever the project is that you're working on, whether you're working on a set or what have you. Um, and really, it's not about, did I learn how to say my lines? Did I learn how to sing my song? Did I learn how to move from stage left to stage right? That's sure, it's the mechanics of how you put on a show, but what it really is life skills like, okay, these were my priorities and now I'm short on time and I can't achieve all of these things. How do I prioritize, or how do I adapt and change this set design to something that's more achievable in the time that I do have? And learn how to see things from another perspective, because that was one of the things that was hardest for me as a costumer. Was I was used to sewing for, like, something that people would see your stitches and see all the intricate details of what you produce.
Right.
But the audience perspective and what they see from 20 feet away is very, very different from that kind of personal sewing. So, y it forces you to think about, "Okay, how is this going to look from somebody else's vantage point?" So there's just so many wonderful things that you learn about life. I didn't know what pivoting was. I didn't learn that from 26 years in the military. I learned that from theater.
Mm.
And really theater I think has been the best personal growth venue for me of my entire life. What I've learned the last 10 years about myself, about my relationships with others, about how I communicate has changed vastly, just because of my interaction with theater. Because if you think about, like, the kind of people I interacted for that 26-year stint in the military, most of them were pretty hard-sided. There wasn't a lot of compassion or grace there. There wasn't a whole lot of room for that because people could die. I mean,
Sure.
frankly. Um, so it was all very cut and dry. Negotiations were possible, but you had to really work at it and be adept to make that kind of thing happen. Um, and there wasn't a whole lot of caring about what the other person needed or wanted or felt. Feeling Feelings just was not a thing. So I come out of that into this environment, and creatives are not like the military people.
No.
They're just not, you know? And I'm very logic based. So I'm very visual and I'm very logic based. And, I I'm around people who can cry at the drop of a hat. And I'm like, okay, is that acting or are you really upset? You know? But I had to learn to be a different kind of human from theater. So which and it's been a wonderful gift.
So you were in the military. You had 4 children.
Mhm.
All of them got hooked into performing arts. When did you finally make that decision that this isn't just for them, this is my thing too?
That's a great question. Because my youngest is 18 and he just finished his sophomore year in college and is probably going to move away like far, far away, like 2,000 miles away. And my daughter, who is the one who really got into the behind the scenes, like, how does this all work? How do I make the magic happen? And she is employed full time as the stage coordinator at UCO. So she doesn't really need this playground anymore. When she was first going through school, it was great for her to have a playground that wasn't dictated by an instructor,
Mm,
where she got to experiment and try new things. So so here I am with and my oldest is off doing their thing. I have a son who's a professional ballet dancer in Virginia. So it's not for my kids anymore. And I had to stop and ask myself, do I keep going? Why am I here? And I regularly pray about it and go, am I done yet? Because I mean, I'm retired from the military. And this is not like an income producing job for me. Really. I mean, really, I give anything I do earn, mostly I give back in terms of scholarships for kids who couldn't otherwise perform.
that's cool.
So, um, so the my youngest regularly asks me, "Why are you still doing this?" Because at times it's very stressful.
Okay.
And there can be a lot of pressure. And it does feed my soul in some way. I'm not sure that I can articulate exactly what that is, but I can say that there have been plenty of times where I was like, "Oh, I don't want to go to rehearsal today." And I come and I leave energized. And
Absolutely.
and I just feel so I don't know what the word is. It's not satisfied, but I mean, I just feel so uplifted when I see the kids come in and leave the same way, where they might have had a really bad day at school and they came and this is their happy place. And there's something incredibly rewarding about knowing that I have a part in providing that happy place. And for a lot of these kids are not your mainstream kid and they get bullied at school.
Mhm.
And this is a place where they're loved and welcomed and accepted. So, it's nice that they have a place to go and that I can be a part of providing that. So
Yes.
and I love it too. Costumes, like, I had a kid who's done shows with a lot of different, theaters at their school and different ones around Edmond and said, some of these places charge a lot of money, some 7, $800 to be in a show. Or, just have bigger names than we do. And this young lady said, but your costumes are always the best. And I feel the most transformed into whatever character I'm playing by the vision that you have and the way you dress me for that role. And that just like, it's like the Grinch and his heart grew
Yeah.
8 times. That was what that felt like, and I've had, plenty of kids who've written me notes and said, "I really was struggling to get in touch with my character and to just commit my lines to memory or whatever, and once I tried on my costume, I felt what it was like to be that character."
Yeah.
So I get that out of it, and I've actually found that I think I enjoy making props even more than costumes. So I maybe because it's more finite, it's like once prop is made, the prop is made, and whereas and they do break them though, and then I fix
Of
them,
course.
but but, I don't know, I maybe just because it's a newer aspect of my participation in theater than alterations and transforming dresses and whatever that I do with costuming. But I do love costuming. I think my favorite TV show is Bridgerton because they have done just everything that I would want done costuming. There's a lot of shows that I've been to before where I feel like they just made sure the actors had clothes on when they took the stage.
Mm.
But one thing that my daughter and I've developed over the time was going, well, what's the backstory? Like, what's that royal family's color? What's their crest? What would it look like? And oh, we're only going to put the royal family in those colors. And then what about these people? And trying to turn the costume visuals into telling part of the story.
Mm.
So like if we have a couple that are at odds with one another, then I will do something where their colors clash. So you can sense the tension between them just from looking at them. And a lot of it happens subconsciously in the audience's mind, but I think it still happens. And so I feel like that's just a very important part of telling the story, just like for the scenic designer, set setting what the story takes place in so that it becomes more real to the audience, that they really see something unfolding before them and take them to a different time or place.
Very cool. So, at what point did you decide, let's start our own company?
It was actually kind of a crossroad that we came to at the place that we were. We had grown the studio student population. When we started and we took over, we had one returning student, and that was my kid. So, and we grew it to 25% of the entire studio's population. But we shared a space with another program that was also growing dramatically, and so it kinda started to become like, well, who gets the space, you know, and where does the studio owner get the most bang for the buck? And they decided, and I think it was the right decision for this organization, that they wanted theater to be more like just a regular dance class, where in the fall you learn your technique things, and then in the spring you prepare for the recital or the show. And we had just in that school year, we had just done 5 shows. We just start launched a homeschool program, so we had a youth program, and then a teen program, and then just had added the homeschool. So, we were ready to take 5 and go up from there, and she wanted to go to 1, maybe 2, maybe either community with 1 program, 1 show in the spring, or, maybe break it out if there were enough students to, and we had 58 students at that point in time and more that wanted to come, because every time they came and saw their friends in a show, they're like, "I wanna do that. That looks really fun." So, um, and that was not the direction we wanted to go. We didn't wanna do less. So, we decided, well, it's time to either change our goals or do our own thing, and so we decided to do our own thing. So this let's see, what did we do this year? So we did a homeschool show, radio play in the fall. We did what did the younger kids do? Oh, I think they did we did it the younger kids was as a community program. We just did Wax Museum again. Um, we did Something Rotten, and we did a collaboration with, Spotlight OKC and their adult acting program. We did A Christmas Carol, and then we also did a collaboration with Edmond Youth Theater, and we did Mary Poppins in January. So, however many shows that is, like, what, 5 shows, you know? And then we did in the spring, we did Get Smart with a kinda community theater, like, from age 7 to I think the oldest person was in their 50s. And then we did, um, Arsenic and Old Lace with our collaboration, the Spotlight OKC. And then we did Into the Woods with our teen group. And then we had a directing class for the first time this year, and we had an improv class that we hadn't done that before, so we've started branching into acting classes as well because we feel like, okay, we know what our rhythm is now for productions, and so they had a little showcase last weekend. So we wanna grow, we wanna do more, Um, and that's how we got there, because we had kids who wanted to do more, and it's amazing how many kids there are that do 2 or 3 shows at one time, you know?
Absolutely. So, what makes the program here at Inspired Theater different than other children and youth programs?
Theater programs, you mean?
Sure.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not sure I know how to answer that because, I can tell you how it's different from the program that and the director that my kids worked with growing up,
Hmm.
who only did 1 show at a time. But she's also one-person shop, and I've never s she's phenomenal, and she's actually just starting back to do shows again. I just saw that she's advertised that she's gonna put on another show, after taking a break. So, it's like you were saying at the beginning.
Hmm.
But I I don't know that much about what other theater programs are doing or offering. I can tell you, though, we're very intentional about what we do. I had some 10-year-olds going, "Oh, we really wanna do Mean Girls." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're really not ready to do Mean Girls. You don't need to be practicing how to be mean,
Yeah.
so we're not gonna go there." You know? Um, I've had kids come to me and tell me about being in another program where they were yelled at and they were cursed at. That will never happen here. That is not okay. We might have a director who uses the harsh voice, like, "Hey, you guys need to get it together." Um, but we believe, I guess, more in the support and the encouragement. One of the things that we tell them is you're always auditioning. So it doesn't end just because you got a part. And the things that that your behavior is telling us is, are you teachable? Are you treating other people with respect? Are you being an encourager? Do you treat the director with respect because you're not the director?
Mm.
It's fine if you have suggestions and there's an appropriate way to vocalize those things. So that is our approach. And we have had families who have been with us since the very beginning when we were at the dance studio, who they're loyal to us because they know we genuinely care.
Mm.
And there's people who are like, "Oh, well, but if you have, like, 70 kids in a show, how can you care about 70 kids?" I'm like, "Well, I think we'll figure that out. When we grow to that point, then we'll figure out how we can share the love to however many kids God is good enough to grace us with." And we took a pretty significant hit when we left where we were because we didn't find a place right away. So it cut our numbers down to probably about half, but we've been slowly rebuilding. And I think the thing that I enjoy the most is seeing the pride in what they have done at the end of the show. To see that they are like, "We created this and it was fun and it was entertaining for the audience and we succeeded." So, I don't know. I don't know how much anybody else is like anything.
Okay. So, you talked a little bit about what you guys have done over the last year or so. What do you guys have coming up?
So, this summer we are doing an Aristocats kids camp. We're gonna do a kind of an audition prep musical theater class in June, just one day a week, where they can learn some things that they will need to reduce the friction and the barriers to auditioning. Young kids especially, it's really intimidating. So we're trying to find ways that they can understand how to audition and not be afraid of it and make it easier for them to do that. And then their camp will be from the 1st of July to the 1st of August with their performances on the 31st of July and the 1st of August. And I'm really excited because the director is a young man who's 16 years old, who has assistant directed on probably at least 3 productions and has been with us for a long time, acting and is a great actor, but also went through the directing class, and is ready to direct his first show, and he's done a great job. I just was meeting with him before you came. He's doing a great job getting his production team together and getting everything planned out and ready to go for that show. So I'm super excited about it. It's a show that he has been in himself. So we're trying to just set him up for being able to take the reins and feel confident about that. And then we're applying for the rights for Six, the teen edition. We've got a director all lined up for that and ready to go. And that will take place. I'm trying to remember the dates. I don't have them in front of me, but they're performing July 24th and 25th. And we're trying to decide whether we're going to do Alice by Heart this summer or not. All the plans were in place and we were ready to go. We were just trying to finalize the dates and what the schedule would look like. We're looking for a director, and honestly, I think that the biggest challenge is finding directors that share our philosophy about working with kids and how to work with kids, um, that stay with us. People most of the people who are super successful as directors, in my experience, are all busy people. And so, it's hard to keep a busy person, for any length of time. But, like, we've had the 2 primary directors that we had for the longest time, they were doing shows every semester plus summer for 3 or 4 years straight. And and it's a lot, especially since both of them had other jobs outside of what they were doing here for the theater. So if there's any amazing directors out there that don't mind working on a shoestring budget, we'd love to talk to you. So,
Okay. Well, due to time constraints, as we're coming to the end of our time here together, I just want to wrap up with I always try to do this, wrap up with a couple of really fun questions. I always like to end on a really good note. So just these are what we call curtain call curveballs. And so they're just off the wall questions, just the first thing that pops into your head. And we'll just do a couple of these. First question: if your morning coffee could give you one superpower for exactly 1 hour, what power are you choosing?
super speed.
Super speed's a good one. Let's see here. Mm, you get a free billboard in Edmond for 1 week. What's on it?
I think it'd say inspired theater and performing arts center, theater with a heart.
Very nice touch. Uh, what is something outside of theater that you totally geek out about?
I'm a big binge watcher of especially reality TV. I'm like
Yeah.
so hooked on the traders right now. But I don't know, like, I'm an analyst by trade. So when I was in the military, I mostly was an analyst
Hmm.
and I did logistics plans and some of those kinds of things. So I love research.
Okay. Well, that's all that we've got time for right now. I want to thank you for your time, Meredith. I appreciate that. If anybody wants to get in touch with you or get involved with you guys, how do they do that?
Good question. Well, email's probably the easiest way to reach us. It's inspiredtheaterok@gmail.com, and that's theater with an R-E. Our Facebook page is pretty active. So we're Inspired Theater OK, I think also on Facebook. Our website is in the works. It needs an overhaul. Um, and Instagram is another one. I think it's just Inspired Theater on Instagram, so
Okay. I'll make sure that all of those links are in the show notes for this episode.
and you can put the phone number in too.
Absolutely. We'll do that. So again, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. Best of luck to you moving forward in growth as you've already seen great strides. So best of luck to you for that. For everybody else listening at home, thank you for your time as well. Thank you for giving us just a little bit of time in your life. You can always find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Our website is oklahomaonstage.org. And you can drop us an email at oklahomaonstage@gmail.com. So thank you for being a part of this. We greatly appreciate all of your support. But more than anything else, we ask you continue to support the arts.